Here I am back in the validator.dart file. This is the unit or the class that is actually being tested. Now, this has very little code. In order to add more tests, I'm going to add some more code to this class. This validator is now going to validate an additional bit of input. In addition to password, it will also validate an email address. You can see that I've defined a new enum called email status on lines 7 through 11. Again, an email address can be valid, it can be empty, or contain an invalid pattern that I'll test using a regular expression. Now, if you scroll down below, we have the validator class once again. On line 16 and 17, I've defined a regular expression, which I believe is a valid email address. Now, of course, for email address validity, you can choose a more complex regular expression if you want to, but this simple one is sufficient for our purposes. We still have the validate password method on lines 19 through 27. Absolutely no changes to the code there. But if you scroll further down, you'll find that we have an additional method that I have defined here called validate email. On line 30, you can see that it takes in an email address as an input argument and returns an email status. It performs a simple check on the email. If the email is empty, then we return email status empty email. If the email specified does not match the regular expression that we have indicated is a valid email, then we return the status invalid pattern. Otherwise, on line 37, we return email status dot valid. Now, this is the simple method. Now we're going to add additional tests for this method. Now, for a single file, you may have multiple tests that are related to one another in some logical way. If that is the case, it's common practice to combine the tests using the group function provided by the Flutter test package. Notice on line 5, I have a group function which groups together all tests for the validator class. So this group is for validator tests. Within this group, I have two tests. The first test is defined on line 8, that is the test for the password input. And the second test is defined on line 19, and that is the test for the email input. Notice that I have instantiated the validator on line 6. This is a validator that can be used by all of the tests in this group. The first test is the password test defined on lines 8 through 17. Now, in this case, on line 9, I've instantiated a validator once again, and that is the validator I've used for the 3 expect statements. You're already familiar with this test. You've seen this before. So let's turn our attention to the email test. That is the new validation code that we've added. And these are the tests for that. The email test is defined on lines 19 through 32. Observe that within this, I do not instantiate a validator.